for your patience, everybody. As I said, I know you're all very busy and I appreciate the time you're taking to attend this launch. I'm Michelle, as I was saying, and I'm facilitating the operations for all the groups on the ground on behalf of 19 Degrees for all universities on the East Coast. 19 Degrees is a social enterprise, and we work with universities and communities and not-for-profits within Asia to meet learning outcomes of Australian nursing students and their prac requirements, and in turn, the community development needs of communities and clinics within Asia. Today, obviously, this session is being recorded. I believe we're having some issues with chat, maybe, or asking questions. If you can pop your information into the chat box and hold them to the end. If we get a chance to answer them, we will today. Otherwise, as I said, this is being recorded and we'll respond to everything offline if needed. What's going to happen today? Today, Hazel and myself are going to be giving a brief rundown of what to expect on your placement, what funding is available for you, as well as a timeline of the application and the preparation required in the lead up to the departure. Griffith University has been offering international health placements since 2009. Now, I've been around since probably 2011 in various roles, but 19 Degrees has been the Australian-based third-party provider for Griffith Health since 2017. And our responsibility as the third-party provider is to set up the placement and liaise with our in-country partners in Asia. In this instance, it's Vietnam. And we work on setting up the placement so that it meets your learning outcomes. Our role is to manage the logistics. We book all of your travel, so your flights from Australia, your accommodation, your transport on the ground. We employ the guides and the translators as well. But together, Hazel and I work very closely together with, we'll plan and implement the pre-departure info, and some of this is managed online this year and some of it is done in person. So we'll have some face-to-face workshops and a pre-departure meeting in the lead up to your departure. We're always here to answer any questions. You'll have my email as well as Hazel's, obviously, full access. And I'm available to offer support before departure, and I'm also available whilst you're travelling if you need that. We work very closely with our support team in Vietnam, and they've got a great mix of experience in community development. They work with various villages and remote communities in terms of what the community's needs are, for example, access to healthcare and healthcare education for these particular groups. They'll work with the clinics and hospitals in the region to match what your needs are as students, as well as your required learning outcomes, and also what the needs of those clinics and hospitals are, be it capacity building, skills in education, equipment, or just general volunteers. A very important part of what we do is manage the risk. We have plans in place to mitigate risks, to ensure that, obviously things do go wrong in the world of travel, but obviously when things happen overseas, we're quick to respond and act when required, because we'll refer back to our risk management plans that we've got in place. Now, that little bit's out of the way. This slide I'll sit on for a little while, just so you can have a look at it. We're very excited to be offering 5 groups this year, so 5 departures. The first one being departing on the 9th of November. And then we have 3 in November and 2 in January. Students can nominate your preferred group when applying, and if you're traveling with some friends, we can certainly accommodate that, as long as there's a good mix within the maximum numbers we're able to take for each group. So you can see we've got Group A, we've got Group B travelling as a combination with USQ. Group C is our last trip in November. For January, we have Group D travelling in combo with CDU. And Group E is going to be a mix, a bit of a bigger group, a mix with nursing and Griffith Health students. And now I'm going to sit back and relax and hand over to Hazel from here, and she's going to talk you through the eligibility and the course information, as well as some further information about the placement and costs. And Hazel, if you just let me know when you want me to move through the slides.
Yep. Thanks, Michelle. And thank you, everybody, for your patience. I think we've got a few students who are having issues with the link to apply, but I think Fiona's working on that. So if you're a current second year nursing student or midwifery student and you will be completed all your clinical courses by the end of this year, then you're eligible to apply. If you're part-time and not likely to complete 2807 or 2809 this year, then you'll have to wait until next year. So for nursing students, the program is linked to 3804 NRS, Community Nursing Practice. So that's a course that you will enrol into at the end of second trimester. So we're actually doing the clinical placement prior to the coursework. For midwifery students, you'll get placement hours towards your Practice 5, but you do need to also enrol in the 3777 Global Women's Health if you haven't already completed it. So students work with local health workers across a number of different clinics, and across the 5 groups we'll work with a number of clinics throughout the district. We work with the local healthcare workers because it's important that we're helping build capacity and also working within a designated health system. And because there's very little English spoken in the area, we have guides or interpreters with us all the time. So you're completing a range of different health skills, health assessment, health education, health promotion. You're working together in small teams to develop a nursing diagnosis and make a recommendation to the local health worker, and they then make that final decision around treatment and any sort of medication that might be required. We also do a little bit of wound care and some home visits. The other thing that we do is health education in the local primary and high schools. So as you can see, there's a whole range of things that you'll be doing, and your clinical courses that you're enrolled in this year will set you up really well to be able to do that, as well as doing a big deep dive back into clinical health assessment, your first year course. Next slide, Michelle. So we're heading off to Vietnam. We fly into Hanoi and then we travel about 4 hours out to Mai Chau, which is a district in the mountains. Quite a lot of tourism, a lot of farming, a lot of rice paddies, lots to do on the weekends. What's different about this area is that there's a number of different ethnic groups living in this area. There's over 50 different ethnic groups in Vietnam, and the majority of the groups that we work with are white Thai. So sometimes language is an issue where especially some of the older people don't actually speak Vietnamese, much less English. So we have some challenging translations at times, but they're a really interesting group from their ethnic background, having come across from Thailand, but having been in Vietnam for hundreds of years. So yeah, really beautiful area of Vietnam. Here's a few photos to whet your appetite. So the ones at the top are in Hanoi, some of the local food, which is amazing. And then the bottom 3 on the right are all in Mai Chau. So you can see it's beautiful, green, lush, lots of rice paddies. In fact, at the time of year we go, the rice paddies are mud. So not so green, but still a beautiful area. And the one in the photo in the corner of the sunset is from one of the rooftops in town where we are on the weekends. So yeah, hopefully you'll get to see all of that. Yep. Next one, Michelle. So it's a 3-week placement. You're required to do 80 clinical hours for 3804. But usually we do a couple of additional clinical days, so you will get those hours counted. The clinics run from Monday to Friday, and then we have the weekends off in Mai Chau. We don't travel back down to Hanoi. So we start off with a couple of hospital observation sessions, one in Hanoi and one in Mai Chau. And then we work with the local health workers throughout Mocho, running these primary health clinics, either in the designated clinic or in the local community hall, or sometimes just underneath or beside our homestay. So as I said, lots of health assessments. We assess in family groups, and then we do a lot of health education within the clinic, but we also do health education at the local high school. So these are the Days for Girls session, which is distributing reusable menstrual hygiene pads that we source in Australia. So you get the opportunity to deliver that education as well, and kits for the girls. Back to you, I think, Michelle. Your mic's off.
Sorry about that. The Vietnam operations. So the accommodation that you have in Hanoi will be twin share. It's a 3-star general standard Western hotel. In Mai Cho, you stay in a guest house or village homestays. When you're out in the villages, you're in communal homestays. So it's everyone together. They're very clean, sanitary, but you'll sleep in one room. So it's all very well set up, and you'll be provided with a mattress, pillow, blanket, and mosquito net. Some of the past students may have some other recommendations, but they'll chat to you about that a bit later. All of your meals at the homestays are included, so you'll enjoy breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the owners of the homestays. In Hanoi and on your weekends in Mai Cho, it's a bed and breakfast basis only, so you're free to go out and enjoy some other meal options. These are just some pictures to expand on the previous slide that we were talking about. So your accommodation in Hanoi, like I said, it's a standard 3-star. It could be twin or triple share. Twin share where possible, and the middle picture is a picture of your of your communal homestay. I'm just still letting people from the lobby. And the picture on the top right is outside of a standard homestay as well. There's some picture that someone's taken of the food provided, so you will be well fed and you will eat the local cuisine. There are bicycles to borrow or sometimes hire, so you can get around the region by pedal power. We also offer golf buggy or golf cart transport as well. And these pictures here are of a clinic. And Hazel, I'm going to hand this one back to you just so you can run through the different aspects of what happens in a clinic if you're still there.
Yep. So obviously we often walk to the clinics, not very often through the middle of some of the rice paddies, but occasionally we need to. The next photo is set up underneath one of the homestays so that all the villagers waiting are out of the sun. We've got a picture there of checking people in through our reception. We do heights and weights, take some observations, and then we set up an assessment table with the local health worker, usually one of us as the RNs, and an interpreter. And then we haven't got a photo of the pharmacy there, but that's I think that's checking somebody in again. So each of the villagers as they come in gets a health record form that we complete and then we add to as they move through the clinic area. So that's a really quick overview. And then, as I said, health education. So most of these are in the school. So hand washing, great photo down on the bottom right of where some of the students had taken some paint. So that after the kids had done their hand washing, they all got to add their handprints to the sheet of paper. Up the top in the middle, the students made up a food pyramid and they actually drew and cut out pictures of different types of foods and got the students, the school children, to put them in the different parts of the food triangle. And then down the bottom on the left, this was one of the groups that we had a physio student with us, so she was teaching some stretches to some of the the clients. Probably 70% of the villagers that we see coming through have musculoskeletal issues, so sore necks or backs or shoulders. They do a lot of manual and physical work. So we're hoping to have some physio students with one of the January groups, so that'll be great. And then, as I said, Days for Girls. So this is something that before you leave, we ask you to do the Ambassador for Women's Health program online. It only takes about an hour and a half, and then we've got flip charts and lesson plans so that you can develop a plan for the students. So they're usually somewhere between 12 and 16 years of age, and we might have anything from 20 to 30, 35 students in a room. Again, you'll have an interpreter with you. So they're always lots of fun, those sessions, and really well received by the girls, many of whom don't have access or can't afford to purchase hygiene products. And then on the weekends, lots of things to do. If you want to go and hire some of the local dress, you can do that. The hotels we stay at have swimming pools, so in December and January you probably won't get in those. There's a cave across the road from Maicho Lodge that you can go exploring. Usually you have access to bicycles at the hotel that you're staying at, and everywhere is within walking distance. So yeah, plenty of time to get out and explore. Oh, and go shopping. So there's lots of local handicrafts there that you can take home as souvenirs, or if you go in the November groups, there's Christmas presents. Shopping done. And then with these placements are all funded through the New Colombo plan. So that means that if you meet the criteria, then you would be awarded a $3,000 grant. So that's a grant. You don't have to repay that. So you'll have an additional $3,300 that you would have to pay. If you're a domestic citizen, so if you're eligible for New Colombo plan, you would definitely be eligible for an OS help loan. That is a loan that gets added to your HECS. So you can borrow up to $8,500 through that. So we'll give you lots of information and details about that once you've been accepted into the program. You can't go ahead and apply for any of these or be awarded the New Colombo Plan grant until you've been officially accepted. So you don't have to worry about how you access that money. We'll let you know once you're in the group.
Okay,
and now back to you.
Back to me. So what does that out-of-pocket expense cost include, I should say? So it will include everything, really. It's your international return economy class flights from Brisbane to Hanoi, your transportation and accommodation on the ground. So from the minute you hop off the plane in Hanoi, you'll be met by in-country partners, transported to the accommodation. They'll arrange to get you to Maicho, etc., etc. It includes your meals on placement, as I mentioned earlier. So it's all your meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner, Monday to Friday, and breakfast on weekends when you're on your own. It includes travel insurance, which is obtained, well, it's included through Griffith University with International SOS. And obviously our ground support team of translators on the ground 24/7, and also access to myself or Fiona or Hazel 24/7 pre-departure, and then also on the ground you have in-country support as well. Moving forward, what happens from here? So obviously that's, you have time to apply, but the pre-departure preparation, once you've been accepted, we've launched an online platform this year, which we're very excited about. It's where you'll have access to your daily itinerary, a snapshot of overview of the actual placement, and it's you'll have access to general information, visa support, everything really, and it's where you'll also upload your passport. So I ask you all please to double check that your passports are valid, because we don't want to have that last minute I can't travel moment. We will be setting up Facebook group chats for each group once everyone's been allocated into their group. And obviously there's some general information about lesson planning, resources and fundraising also in there. Just to touch on student health and safety, obviously we take this very seriously. We ask you to complete a fitness to participate questionnaire with your doctor and get that back to us, and there'll be some dates in the timeline for that. You'll be given a list of any pre-trip vaccinations required. As I said earlier, travel insurance is offered through Griffith with International SOS, so you'll have to, if you have any pre-existing medical conditions that need to be covered, you'll need to check that policy as well. We complete a full risk assessment, which you'll have access to, and I think I've said it about 9 times now, the 24-hour support, so you're never left alone. What happens from here? This is your timeline. So if everything else has been a blur today, if you could remember these dates, but again, it'll all be, information will be coming through to you, so you won't have to panic about that. So from here, you can access your, obviously you need to check your eligibility, whether you're eligible to apply. Applications will be done on a form via Sonia, which Hazel will have and send out to you. And obviously that will go live today, and you'll have until the 15th of May to submit that application. There'll be group interviews on either the 26th or the 29th of May, and that's obviously between yourself and Hazel and the staff at Griffith. Offers will be sent out at the end of June, and then from there, that's when I guess 19 Degrees will step in and manage the process. Obviously, we need to register online through our online platform, pay the deposit. We have a first team meeting set up for the end of August, and then there's also pre-departure workshops throughout that timeline as well. The final payment is for the November groups is due mid-August, and for the January groups is due the end of September. And obviously, if you've got any questions whatsoever throughout the whole process, please, by all means, email myself or Hazel, and we'll do our best to answer them. Now, from here, we're going to welcome some past students, I think, who've been waiting patiently and appreciate their time, who are going to just give a brief insight as to their time on placement. So you might get a better insight from them. I'm going to, I don't know who I've got here. Is this Chantel or Trish?
It's Trish.
Trish, welcome.
Thank you. So from our experience, it was beyond anything we can even imagine. It's probably the highlight of my whole nursing journey, my whole nursing career. It taught a lot about myself, and it really cemented why I am doing this degree. It would be if you do get accepted in, we basically knew straight away, and we got down to fundraising straight away. There was a group of 4 of us. And as soon as we got accepted, we nailed down and started fundraising, and our group of 4 actually raised $3,500 just with the 4 of us. I think that's one of the biggest amounts that was raised. Tips that I'd wish I'd known, if you do go, highly suggest you invest in good blindfold, good earplugs, because the roosters do not stop. And
a mattress.
And a mattress. A couple of people had these air mattresses that you could pump up with your feet. Highly recommend, because the homestays, you're basically sleeping on the floor, and it's not the most comfortable night's sleep.
And take your own pillow as well if you have the room. Definitely.
Yeah. Assessments. It really made us grow as a nurse and as an individual. We did so many assessments, and it really gave me the confidence moving forward in my final year. And the Day for Girls was an absolute highlight for me. Had an absolute ball. Yeah.
It's definitely an experience, and it's so humbling as well. Yes, you can go through your degree and you can go on placements and learn all your basic nursing cares, but to actually go out there and have people so thankful and I don't even have the words. It was just really humbling, because everyone is so thankful and so appreciative of all the care that you give them.
Yeah.
And it could be the most bare minimal thing, you could be recommending them paracetamol, but to them it's something that they needed.
Yeah. I did find myself locked into a squat toilet for a half an hour. Do not recommend.
Funniest thing of my life.
Not Patricia.
Yeah,
No.
not Patricia.
I thought I was going to live there at one point. So, but no, it was all around. I can't fault it. It was an amazing experience. It was tough being away from family because you can't always get in contact with them. So just bear that in mind. There isn't a lot of reception that, yeah, you can get it is suggested you get the Sims when you're over there, but they don't always work. So you can't always get contact with your family, which can be probably the tougher side of things.
Definitely go with your guide when you get there to get your sim as well, because we found that the guides had better connections with the sims. So most of the people had better reception than when someone like me, I couldn't call home for 3 days because I got a cheaper one. Then yeah, because I missed the bus to go to get my sim. But yeah,
Highly recommend.
Yeah, definitely do it.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. That's really great. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
From here, I've worked out if anyone does have any questions, if you put your hand up, I can open your microphone. We can have a full chat.
Michelle, the only thing that I was going to add is that all of the information and some instructions related to applying will be via Nurses Connect, because some of the students that are might be interested in going aren't enrolled full time, and so wouldn't have access to the current clinical course site. So just reminding everybody to go to Nurses Connect, and we're just finalising the last section of that. So that should be available later this afternoon. And the form, I believe, is already available on Sonia. But please make sure that you go to Nurses Connect first and read the additional instructions. Marley, I can see you asked about safe food options. Yes, we have our own cooks that come with the team, and they do an amazing job for students that have any sort of food requirements. So gluten-free, lactose-free, vegetarian, vegan, yeah, and the food's amazing. And Bethany, yes, you can apply for a preferred date. My suggestion to everybody is to be as flexible as possible in regards to which group you want to go to. The more options you give us, the more likely you are to get a place. And Jasmine, yes, we will accept some applications from international students, but you wouldn't get any funding. So you wouldn't be eligible for the New Colombo Plan loan grant, and you wouldn't be able to apply for the loan, but you would get a $500 international experience incentive grant from the university.
I've got Ebony here. I think you've had your hand up, Ebony, for a while. If you've got a question.
Hello. Yes, I just have a few questions. One of them was, if you aren't successful in getting the grant, are you able to? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Can now. Yes.
Oh, sorry. If you aren't successful when you've gone for the grant, how are you able to withdraw from the trip if you can't afford the $6,300?
Hazel, did you hear that?
I couldn't hear it properly.
Okay, so Ebony's question was, if you've applied and you're not accessible for the grant, are you able to withdraw from the trip if you can't afford the $6,000?
Yes, so basically, if you're currently a domestic student and eligible for HECS, then you would be eligible for the NCP grant and the OS Help loan. In the information that you get, you'll see that we are restricted in the number of grants we give to students that are over 28, but we usually can put forward a case to have that waived. So usually it's only 30% of the group can be over 28, and that's a DFAT ruling. That's not a university ruling. So yes, if there was any issue with your eligibility, you could withdraw.
Okay, thank you. And then I just had one more question for the other nurses that were on before that went on the international placement. I just wanted to know how hard they found the fundraising activity, and was that for themselves, like fundraising for themselves to go overseas, or was that for the Vietnam trip?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
So they've actually gone back to the lab because they're
okay, sorry.
working as peer mentors. But they actually had a great time doing the fundraising, and they had all sorts of amazing ideas with the things that they did. They did trivia nights, they did silent auctions, they did a sip and paint. I think there was more sipping than painting, all sorts of things. So we'll talk to you about fundraising in the pre-departure workshops, but for the groups in January and March, because they did raise a lot of money, we were actually able to buy some specific clinical equipment for the local hospital that they'd been wanting for several years. So that was great to be able to do that. So generally what you're doing is fundraising for purchasing equipment or supplies. So we need to buy supplies for the health education when we're in country. We'll often buy some additional supplies for the clinic. And then not only as a group, but also based on what the local community require, given that this is it's a social enterprise program, it's a community development program. So it's very much about asking the local community and getting feedback from the local community about what they need, rather than us coming in and saying, oh, I think you need this, here it is. So it's in conjunction with the local health workers and community leaders. You can also fundraise for your own costs, but you need to be very upfront to the people that you're gaining funds from, that you're going to use it towards your own cost rather than the actual project, and make that decision very early on, especially if you're fundraising with others.
Okay, and then I had one last question.
Yeah.
Is there an actual cost breakdown of where the $6,300 goes, like on the trip?
Yep, I'll hand back to Michelle or Fiona for that one.
Thank you.
We don't actually have a full breakdown. It is something that obviously there are costs involved. I can definitely answer that one offline once I've had more with Fiona. So she manages that side of it, being the managing director. So I'm not handballing that, and I'm not denying that there are costs involved, but I don't personally have a full breakdown of the costs. Like obviously airfare pricing this year, my background being the travel agent, I can tell you the airfares are ridiculously expensive. So that is where some of the cost goes, and obviously we try and keep that down by purchasing a group airfare as such. There is also a question I saw there from Claire, if she wanted to extend the trip to travel, is that allowed? Because it is a group airfare, deviations, obviously with COVID restrictions and everything previously, we haven't allowed deviations, but it is something, I'm happy to look at and see if it is something we can facilitate for you. Ebony, I hope that's answered some of your questions.
Tanya, you've got a question about where on Nurses Connect. We're actually setting up an additional tab. So once we've got that available, I'll put an announcement on the 2803 course site. So I'll do that later today. If you're not currently enrolled in 2803, then just email me and I'll send you that information. So, Catherine, that's an interesting question about why students aren't successful in the interviews. So we have group interviews where we actually give you several scenarios that you work through as a group, and we not only observe you interacting with each other, but also look at some of your responses. We then also do a short personal interview, individual interview, plus we get you to complete a fairly extensive application form and address a number of criteria. So most students that apply are successful. We've got a lot of placements available. We've got about 50 places available for nursing students this year. We also look at previous ANSATs. We look at any concerns on your clinical placements or within your clinical courses. So we look at a whole range of things. It's definitely not just a GPA and, you know, are you the noisiest person in the interview? And we'll give you a little bit of information and I guess a bit of guidance at the start of the group interview process. So Jade, we're looking at about 14 students per group. A couple of the groups might have a couple of extra students, so up to 16 maximum. And Tanya, you'd asked about visas. No, they're not. You need to apply for those online. I think it's about $25 US. You'd also have to pay for any additional vaccinations that you might require, but given that you're all health students, you don't have a whole lot of those. Yeah, so that changed post-COVID, Tanya. So it's now an online e-visa that you apply for about a month before you leave, and definitely sooner than a few days before you leave.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions, unless anybody else has any other questions that they want to pop into the chat. Otherwise, we can take it offline and you can by all means email myself or Hazel if you've got any other questions that pop to mind as soon as we stop sharing.
Yeah. So the other thing that we're going to do is set up a separate site on Canvas on the New Learning Griffith site. So there will be a separate site where we'll have a discussion board running and we'll have some content available because as you probably worked out, the placement is actually before the 3804 teaching intensive in February.
A few more questions have just popped in there, Hazel. So the part about if we can select a preferred date, Ebony, yes, you can this year. You're able to. Yep. Obviously, we do need to even them out. So if everyone wants a particular date, it will be sort of really first in, first served.
Yes, please put a second preference. Yeah. If you absolutely can only go at one particular time, then it may be that you miss out, depending on how many people apply. But yeah, if you've got a second preference, that will make it a lot easier for us putting all the putting the jigsaw puzzle together. And thank you, Vicky, for commenting about International Nurses Day next week. So we've actually invited some of our students, and Chantel and Fish and a couple of others that went to Vietnam will be at Logan and several at the other campuses. So I think we are actually going to talk a little bit about international placements there, but it won't be a presentation as such, but there'll certainly be a panel at International Nurses Day. So come along and ask some more questions there and get a free lunch. Yes, so Jasmine, international students can apply. You're just not eligible for the grant.
There was one other question that's gone up, is a random question from Hayley. How many uniforms and clothes do we bring? I guess all that information will be listed at the first team meeting or at the pre-departure meeting, most definitely.
Yeah, so as you can see, the students are in uniform, attending the hospitals and the our clinics in the villages, but you do have access either to a laundry or the local women in the villages will wash for you for about $1 a kilo, cheapest washing you'll ever get done. And yeah, usually most students will take 2, maybe 3 sets of uniforms.
Right.
Can't see any other questions there.
Any other questions? There's no more hands up that I can see. But I really appreciate your time today, and I'm really looking forward to working with you guys over. Oops, there's just some thank yous coming in now. I'm looking forward to working with you all the coming months in the lead up to your departure. So good luck with your eligibility and applications, and I look forward to the next steps once we've passed the approval stage. So I'm going to start recording now and leave you all, but thank you again. So unless Hazel has anything else to add.
No, all good. Thank you everyone for the questions and thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
Bye.